Now, as the World Economic Forum on Africa enters its second day, African governments have been called upon to invest heavily in digital transformation to drive the economic prosperity of the continent. But business leaders at the forum say digital transformation on its own cannot deliver the economic prosperity that Africa needs. Well, CCTV's Michael Baleke has more on that.
Business leaders say Africa has many challenges, among them energy, which is a major factor in business growth. However, they argue that digital transformation may be vital in building economies resilient to today's challenges, but it should be used as a platform to transform Africa.
I see the beauty and the benefit of us talking about digital transformation as a means, one of the means to creating jobs for our people, one of the means to empowering our people. That is why I'm here, and I believe everyone needs to see from that perspective.
The leaders agree that the debate about digital transformation is timely and important, and that Africa should not be left behind.
For digital, it shouldn't be for only seen as a privilege of the few. It should be everybody. And the most important thing is that the digital generation we are in now is no longer seen as purely for communication here and there. It's for agricultural growth. It's for health growth.
However, for some African countries like Rwanda, who have registered a major transformation in several sectors, there are still problems.
The challenge of energy, electricity, especially deep in the rural areas, so that's a challenge. The challenge that we are building our human skills starting from a very low base. The challenge of creating appropriate local content.
The success stories of digital transformation are well known, and the summit here is more about prescriptions for future growth and success. And although Africa is still lagging behind on a range of key infrastructure needs, such as access to clean water, paved roads and electricity, ongoing discussions at this forum show the continent is thirsty for new technologies. Michael Baleke, CCTV, Kigali, Rwanda.
Now, earlier on, CCTV correspondent Zhang Cheng talked to a senior Chinese diplomat to Africa, Liu Guijin, on the theme of the forum, which is connecting Africa's resources through digital transformation.
I think this theme is very forward-looking because Africa's development won't lag behind the world's development forever. If so, Africa can't realize a rise up. So Africa needs to pay more attention to digitization, internet and innovation. To some extent, this will help Africa overtake other countries.
Now, Rama Nyang joins us in Kigali with an update on what's going on at the forum. Rama, great to have you on the show. Day 2 of the World Economic Forum is coming to an end. Now, in light of this tough year the continent is facing, what are the participants saying about investing in Africa going forward? Give us some of those highlights.
Investing in Africa is an enormous area of concern, and one of the things that we've been trying to tackle so far today is focusing on infrastructure. Several sessions in the course of the day are focused on the hard side of it. How do we fund, for example, the development of energy, roads, sanitation, water services, telecommunication? A lot of money will be flowing, especially into that last category. The others, however, seem to have a problem in terms of governments being able to raise funds to actually plow into those particular sectors across the board. However, the one thing that really hasn't gotten that much attention as yet is a soft side of infrastructure, education, skills being a particular focus. Let's dig a little deeper into that with my guest tonight, Mariam Jam from I Am the Code. Thank you very much for your time this evening. You've been here for, well, the last 2 days or so. Do you get the sense, and when we talk about this fourth digital transformation, are we focusing enough on the soft skills, educating people?
Well, thank you so much for having me. I don't think we focus on it yet, and I think that's why the I Am the Code movement has been launched here in Rwanda, in Kigali, to make sure that young women particularly are part of the whole conversation around a digital revolution.
But moving forward, I mean, I know you focus specifically, especially on the education of young girls. Give us a sense of just how big that gender gap is, especially in educating children of the same cohort, the same age in science, tech, and mathematics?
It's huge. I mean, that's a great question. It's a huge at the moment in Africa. So I think that's why it's very important that, you know, through your channel we can really talk about you know, how it's important to invest into STEM subjects. Right now there's a big gap in coders, for example, in Africa. There's a gap in skills. There's a gap in investment on STEM subjects. So I'm hoping that by tomorrow the African government, the private sector, and the investors can start looking into, you know, how do we support young women across Africa and young girls to start looking into these STEM subjects, because in the next 15 years we will need African coders. We'll need African to go into manufacturing industries, but with the right skills. Right now we don't have that.
Who's more receptive to your message? Government, private sector?
I mean, it's been amazing. The I Am the Code movement, since I launched it a couple of months ago, we've been inundated with, you know, with really support from government, the private sector, and investors. There is a need. So I'm a pioneer. I pioneer fix in Africa. So all I'm doing right now is calling the African government, especially here in Kigali, when we have Macky Sall from Senegal. Just call the African government, start really thinking the soft side, as you said earlier. You know, who is investing into the next digital leaders in Africa? I'm hoping that by tomorrow, you know, we'll have this conversation going.
You mentioned your organization, I Am the Code. How do you scale up the project across, I know your roots are in West Africa, but I mean the demands for this sort of education are right across the continent, the north, the south, the east as well. How do you take the model you're executing now, say in Senegal, for example, and export that into, say, Kenya, Tanzania, even here in Rwanda?
We're a global movement, you know, from Dakar to China. We are a global movement. But what I'm trying to do here is to raise awareness and make sure people understand that in Africa in particular, if we don't invest into the STEM subjects right now, there is no need to talk about the fourth industrial revolution. If we don't invest into young women right now in the continent, and young girls growing up in the continent, and some young girls right now, they're 15 years old. If we don't invest in them, they'll be 30 years old in 2030. So there's no need to not invest in them right now. So what we're trying to do is teach 150,000 girls how to code by 2030, but also demand the African government to start investing and looking into those disciplines. And that's what I'm trying to do. And hopefully we can bring them at the United Nations in 2030 and show how we taught them to code, how we found them jobs, and how they become entrepreneurs. So that's my goal.
From your perspective, should coding be a mandatory course subject in curricula right across Africa?
Absolutely. I mean, if Africa want to play the role, you know, if you want to play the big boys, you know, want to really make sure that, you know, we are part of the whole fourth industrial revolution. We're not even on the third at the moment. So because we lack infrastructure, we lack skills, we lack people, we lack real coders. Most of our coding is done in India, is done in other countries. So what I'm saying is, if we want to really build the skills in our continent and calling for that revolution, we need to start building the skills in our continent. But I think that's what the meeting is right now, you know, creating this conversation where we can like start investing into our people.
When we talk about tech, one of the things that has come up quite a lot over the last 2 years has been the manner in which this male-dominated industry reacts when women come into the picture, usually with a lot of hostility. Have you run into that?
Absolutely. I'm a tech CEO in London. I see this quite a lot. I mean, that's why I'm focused on young women and young girls at the moment. So I think moving forward, we need male coders as well, but women code better than men. But I think that, you know, my focus really is we need to focus in this demography of young women and young girls in Africa.
Right, let's wrap this up. Usually when you come to these WF events, we have a lot of interesting conversations. But once we leave here tomorrow, what are the 3 key things you want to see done so that when we meet next year, you can actually say X was done, this was done, this was done?
So in the next couple of years, in the next couple of weeks, you're going to see I Am the Code, the movement growing across the world. And then what I'm trying to do is really get the government to understand that I need 200 girls being coders. So we're going to Myanmar. Hopefully we just build a residency, a place in Myanmar where we're going to bring 10, 20 women in Myanmar where they can learn how to code properly, from Java to Python. So give us a time, but we're very focused. We want to make sure that girls are learning how to code, they find jobs, and they become entrepreneurs. That's our motto.
All right, we'll leave there for the time being. Thank you very much for
your
insights.
My pleasure. Thanks for having me. Thank you.
Right, Ute, a lot of interesting conversations, as I mentioned earlier, will be happening over here. Tomorrow, some more conversations that we're looking forward to. We'll be looking at drone aviation and how it's being used to deliver life-saving goods and services right here in Rwanda. This country is a pioneer in that regard, beating out even Kenya, which has the largest aviation sector in the region. We'll also be having a conversation bright and early in the morning with the governor of the Central Bank of Kenya. The banking sector, of course, in that country has been having quite a few issues. We'll be trying to get into the bottom of them with Dr. Patrick Njoroge right here for you. For now, though, Back to you in studio.
Well, thank you so much, Rama. Of course, certainly we'll be looking forward to that.